Ladies and gentlemen,
Good evening.
Are you ready?
Okay, here we go.
You're listening to the Deal Room Podcast. Join us as we bring you the inside scoop on business sales and acquisitions. Get across trends in the area and hear the industry's best recount their real-life tips, traps, and experiences. Now, here's your host, Joanna Oakey.
Hi, it's Joanna Oakey here, and welcome back to the Deal Room Podcast, a podcast proudly brought to you by our commercial legal practice, Aspect Legal. Today, we are talking to Oliver Wood from the Meta Project. Now, today is a bit of a different episode. This is what we are now calling in our new episodes of this type a Fireside Chat. The whole idea of it is that we bring you something a little bit different to our usual discussion just about business, sale and acquisitions. We're providing a slightly different viewpoint from advisors who can help us from different angles in this space. And in this discussion, Ollie and I talk about how fitness, both in body and mind, can help you when you're preparing for the acquisition of a business, for the sale of a business, or indeed if you're an advisor working in the area. We also relate this discussion to Ollie's own experience with his father's sale of his business. So if you are at all interested in fitness and how this can contribute to energy in an acquisition or exit, then tune in for this episode of the Deal Room Podcast. Here we go. Ollie, welcome to the show. It's so exciting to have you on the Deal Room Podcast today.
Thanks for having me join.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, why don't we start by giving a little quick background of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, I was someone who grew up in doing every sport possible, and I think walking through that space of understanding the nuance and simple break of realizing that your nutrition is going to be very dependent on the type of thing you want to achieve, right? I think everyone's seeking the new diet, the thing that's going to work for everyone. And I think we've come to the realization that there's no diet that's going to work for everyone, but also there's no diet that's going to work for you for every time, right? So different seasons, different goals, whether we're trying to recover from exercise or whether it's high quality focus and clarity at work, they ultimately require different focus points. So that was very much an early on focus for me, diving into the personal training space and starting to see people working really hard, doing lots of stuff to try get in shape or try create some level of health that they fitted into their day around work. Yet it didn't matter how strong they were getting, the amount of stress and inflammation coming through was just completely decimating their ability to move forward. And until you address the key component of this, which ultimately component is nutrition and environment, looking at the stress that we know we've just got so used to, it's such a big part of trying to make sure that we look at body change or how that's obviously going to impact our energy, our productivity, our ability to show up at work. It's not just pushing things harder. And I think some of us focus, or certainly I did, from the all or nothing approach. It certainly works getting into that business space, getting your elbows through the door. But as we want to make those 1% improvements and ultimately make sure that in the day we have a body, we have a vehicle to enjoy the wealth of the business or whatever we've created in that journey, I think a lot of us are getting to the end of the run and starting to see that we don't have a vehicle left to enjoy it. And it's very much the dog running after the car. What the hell happens if it ever catches it? And I think taking the time to just step back, look at what we need to do to fit your health back into your day without it being a contradicting focus of work, but actually being very complementary. If our energy is off, if we're feeling sluggish, we have that 3 p.m. dip, we're making erratic decisions, we're not in a place to be as productive as possible. So that certainly for me was a focus early on, is seeing my ability to get results with clients was going through an understanding of breaking it down and looking at, it was 100% training to start with, then it became 80% training, 20% nutrition, then it became, 60% nutrition and 40% training. And we started to go through this thought process of there are so many more things that you need to have in place to get your body back on your side, because currently you feel like you're spinning your wheels in the mud. And that's not just with exercise, but it's showing and translating up in how you're showing up day to day. And we all know in that business space, if we're not getting we only ever rise to the level of our personal development, our personal confidence, and we keep breaking those personal sort of promises with ourselves, then that confidence, that clarity, that energy is not going to be the same at work.
Yeah. And I love, we've talked in the past and you've talked about to 10x your business, you need to 20x ourselves. And I just love that, as a concept. I love that as a saying. It's a really great. It's a really great saying, because obviously, if you're building a business to an exit, if you're buying a business, or even if you're a business broker or accountant running a practice where you're supporting business owners in these really high energy, high emotion sort of areas, such as business sale and acquisition, you need to be, fully there, don't you? You need all the energy you can get, and the reality is, if you're not match fit, then you're not going to show up in your best way for what can be one of the most important points in your whole business career, that acquisition of a business, that sale of a business. And often I find that that the best results in buying or selling a business come from the buyers or sellers who've got the most energy, that can sit there with the process for the longest, that can keep engaged in the process for the longest, because it can be an emotional journey and it can take a lot of energy. And I know you've got a bit of a story in this area from a personal perspective as well.
Yeah, I think we see this every day with plenty of clients going through both the building and business growth phase, but also that exit, and having a look at what shifts they really go through. And I think the business space in general is one of the best self-development tools we have to start with, right? We go through so many personal blocks that really we are the bottleneck at every point in growth and sale of a company, that ultimately it's a case of either finding a way to delegate, lead in a way that we show up well. And I think it really takes the time, we need to take the time to look at how we show up as a leader, or how we show up for ourselves first. And going through that journey, I think health is a component that we tend to get humbled by, and it sort of comes up when we don't expect it. And I was going through this process, of all people, working with hundreds of clients through business acquisitions, or working with them in the business space, and making sure their body's in a space that they can handle that. And then talking to my own dad, going through that spot, and he's trying to get his business ready for that space. Okay, what does this actually look like without me there, right? And at the same time, right, everything comes in at the same time. He's trying to go through a knee surgery, right? And he starts to feel run down. He's feeling sluggish. He's starting to make more erratic decisions, and he's starting to notice how, in such a what he took for granted for so long, his body's finally starting to knock on the door. And the amount of times we start to see that happen in the same space of the high stress stakes, and we wait to the last minute, right? We have the tickle that we should probably start to listen to. Then we have the whack. And if we don't listen, we get the full-blown truck, and we end up in hospital with something that we really wish we dealt with 5 years ago. And going through that process of, as you mentioned, trying to sell a business, there's so much there that you need to be comfortable being able to onboard into other people in your team, or be able to build out a process that someone else can do it. And when it takes that much energy, that amount of emotion, you need to be in a space that you feel clear-headed. You have the space to make clear decisions that are not just on the whim. And the simple things that we all miss, right? We all need the new coffee or the new cognitive enhancement, but we're simply not sleeping well and taking time to decharge at the end of the day, or get ready for the next day. And I think a simple understanding, both in business and health, is that it's not about doing more of the right thing. It's simply about doing less of the wrong. And when we look at this, Bill Gates doesn't have more hours in the day. He's simply being able to remove all the extra shit and focus on the things that allow you to move forward. And I think for us, we're doing a lot of that in the health space, right? We're in a constant space of where's the massive shift we can make to drop body fat in 6 weeks, rather than what's going to make sure that we're still around in 10 years, right? And if we look at that in the financial market, it's the exact same thing. Rather than just trying to get a steady return on a stock market, then what we try to do is find a 50% return in something overnight, but it's much more likely for us to drop 50%. And in that situation, we haven't gone from $100 up to $150. We've gone down to $50. And in order for us to get back up to 100, that's not a 50% increase. That's double just to get back to baseline. And we see it all the time with health, because we're not taking the time to just chip away at the foundations every day. We run out of energy. We feel fatigued. We just have no time. And then we get the cheeseburger on the way home, right? We just completely miss us out of that equation. And if we're not taking the time to front load that bucket and fit us into our day, then it's always going to have systemic ramifications on how we make decisions at work.
So what's your, and I love that comment, it's about doing less of the wrong things, not so much about doing more of the right things. That's fabulous. Love it. Love it. So maybe if you could just give us, what are the top 3 wrong things that you think people are often doing, the mistakes that people are making that they may not even realize?
Yep. They are, I think, first one we would look at is we've got our personal and business calendar separate. I think they need to be in the same place, right? Take yourself seriously, put yourself on that business calendar. Having that conversation with your wife or partner and saying, I've blocked you out in my business calendar, might be a weird conversation, but it actually starts to be a process of, you are an important part of my day and I'm blocking you out of my calendar so it happens, right? And so much of this gets pushed because business gets blocked over everything else. And this whole process of, if we want it to 5x our business, we need to 10x ourselves, then we need to take the time to look at what are the components of our company, what are the components of our personal life, and what are the components of our relationships that we really want to bring along for the ride. Because so much of us focus so much on a goal and we lose everything in the process because we're so focused on the goal. When we take the time to build our own personal standard, our own personal promise to ourselves of all these areas that we want to make sure we maintain, and we simply become the person that expects that goal through the actions we do every day, rather than seeking, hoping, wishing for the goal that's coming. And I think when we start to see so many people getting to a point where they hit a certain level of business success and relationships are falling apart, health's falling apart, and we get to the end and we've seen it 100 times, right? Why did I leave that behind? It simply comes from making sure in that journey of building business, don't leave behind your own personal development, and your health is a huge part of that, because it's simply those own promises that you make to yourself that nobody else knows about. And until you're in that big work meeting and you're sitting there making those decisions, it's that little bit of confidence at the end of the day that creates you being your own hero. And I think when we're sitting there in a suit feeling empty, or we can't look at ourselves in the mirror, that's going to make a really, really big difference in our ability to make long-term decisions as opposed to very finite ones.
Brilliant. Okay, wonderful. And look, and I guess if you're just going to give our listeners one lasting tip, what's the one thing they could implement today moving forward that you think could make an ultimate difference for them?
Yeah, a concept to use overall has to be do it for you, not to you, right? I think very much we're going through this space of I should do this, I should do that, and no should ever gets done. It's the thing that actually becomes something you own. So when we're looking at a morning routine, it doesn't matter whether it's a cold shower, a walk, just making sure you're getting good breakfast, or sitting down and actually enjoying your coffee. It's just making sure that we're taking the time to fit us back into our day. And as that week starts to get busier, we need to lean into that more and more rather than completely lean out. This all or nothing attitude is not improving health, and long term it's not helping business either. So just taking the time to anchor in us, no matter how busy it gets, we learn a lot more on the hard week than we do on the easy. So stop waiting for the easy week to get your health back on track, because unless you're not planning on being busy again, it just goes out the window again. You've got to find a way to nail those non-negotiables when things still are flat out and you're still fitting you into your day, because that's the life that you enjoy living, but you're draining your body in the process.
Well, it's such a good point. And just to the things that you're talking about, take time to enjoy your coffee. I certainly enjoy my coffee. I must say that's one of those huge things in the day. But that cold shower concept, I don't know, that sounds freaky to me. There must be some sort of health reason for that. I feel like I need to understand, like just very quickly, and then I want to leave with some parting words about how I think you can look to apply some of these concepts by reference to a book that I recently read that's fabulous. But tell me about this whole cold shower thing. Just very quickly, try and convince me in 10 seconds or less. Why cold shower? What's that all about?
It's hard to convince you if it's a should, right? It has to be something I'd want to try. But
okay, got it. All right. So some people find it pleasurable. Is that the idea?
Well, look at this way, right? When we have certain people that enjoy late nights at the office because we're getting ahead, right? We've associated a pleasure center with like, I'm doing the hard work and I'm enjoying it. When I associate that same pleasure center with something like a cold shower to get in there, break through the comfort zone that I've created for myself, that becomes a personal a personal strength that I think you build. Now,
make it unpleasant so I can prove to this is fascinating. Okay, all right.
You've got one person that hates exercise because it's uncomfortable, and you've got one person that loves exercise because it's uncomfortable. Okay. The difference is not the outcome. The difference is what you associate as being pleasurable. One person works late on the Friday night and taps himself on the back saying, well done, you're actually doing what you need to achieve your goals, and the next person hates it because they're there because they've been told to. It's completely just a shift in what you're creating as a reward center of, is that something that you want to do? It's no longer something Joanna said she should do. It's something she loves to do. And doing a morning shower can simply be that little stamp that's like, I've done something hard today. Everything else from here becomes easier. Now, there is certainly a dopamine hit from a cold shower when you get in, you get out, and your energy's high. And that becomes, something that allows you to reinforce that pleasure center. But no matter what that is, at the end of the day, if it's going to be something that you nail in for your health and how that allows you to show up in every other area you care about, it has to be something that you enjoy or that you associate with being pleasurable.
Got it. Okay. Well, I was reading this. I read it a while ago. Atomic Habits. Anyone who's not read it, it's such an amazing book. But one of the things they talk about there is in the way to set up I think it was Atomic Habits. The way to set up a habit is to start by small micro commitments, and then just start this thing for yourself where you go, well, if you if you decide that going for a walk or a half-hour jog a day is going to be something that you want to do, rather than set yourself the goal of 30 minutes each day, set yourself the goal of 2 minutes each day, so you get out and get started. And then with micro commitments, and I just thought, wow, isn't that for me, in one tip wonder world, that was just one tip that for me created so many fabulous habits.
We use it all the time with clients, right? Like if you're trying to find an hour and a half to do a workout, of course you can't find an hour and a half. Start with 10 minutes and you'll find it everywhere. We use that. James Clear and BJ Fogg, fantastic in that space of behavior design. We use it all the time.
Love it. Love it. Well, look, what a fascinating discussion. Loved to hear how we can relate, obviously, all of this, not just to our own personal life, our getting ourselves strong for business, but also getting ourselves in the right emotional state or our clients in the right emotional state for entering into a big transaction like a business acquisition or sale. Huge thank you for coming onto the show. And how do our listeners find you if they want to find out more?
Absolutely. If you want to dive into the space, we put out a ton of free content, just diving into the space of gut health, nutrition, training, how we can actually just show up as a better leader, employee, business owner, whatever that might be. We have a 5-day free challenge on the male and female side. There's very different biologies, and really we want you to understand what's really going on. So I think going through our main website, themetaproject.co, would be a really easy way to find a little bit more out about us or apply that to your life and know what that looks like.
Brilliant. Wonderful. Well, look, thank you so much for your time, Ollie. So good to speak to you. I'll be watching some of your information. I still need to work out this whole cold shower thing. Sounds fascinating. But anyway, thanks for coming on to the show.
No problem at all. Great to be on.
Thanks. Bye. Well, that's it for this episode of the Deal Room podcast and our very first in our series of short and sharp fireside chats. Of course, we were talking to Oliver Wood from the Meta Project. And if you're interested in finding out more details about Ollie Wood or the ways that he works with businesses and business owners, just head over to our website at thedealroompodcast.com. There, of course, you'll also be able to find details of how to contact our legal eagles at Aspect Legal if you would like any assistance with an acquisition or sale. Well, that's it. Hope you enjoyed what you heard today. And if you did, don't forget to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Thanks again for listening in. See you next time on the Deal Room Podcast, a podcast proudly brought to you by our commercial legal practice, Aspect Legal. See you next time. Aspect Legal has a number of great services that help businesses prepare for a sale or acquisition, to help them prepare in advance and to get transaction ready. We've also got a range of services to help guide businesses through the sale and acquisitions process. We work with clients both big and small and have different types of services depending on size and complexity. We provide a free consultation to discuss your proposed sale or acquisition. So see our show notes on how to book a time to speak with us, or head over to our website at aspectlegal.com.au.
Ladies and gentlemen.
That will conclude this evening's entertainment.
Thanks for listening to the Deal Room Podcast. To find out more about this episode and other episodes in the series, check out the show notes or head over to our website at thedealroompodcast.com.au.